Welcome, everyone, joining us on a brand new edition and a brand new year of the Sacramento State Hornets Stingers Up Football Podcast. Oh, football is back, and it's so good to be here. I'm your host, Jason Ross, and expectations have hit the Hornets. After what they have done in their last two full seasons under head coach Troy Taylor, it's a year in which expectations have landed on the Hornets, and I think this team is ready to handle those expectations. And in our first podcast of season 2022, what we're going to do today is get a little bit of a preview on the offense, hear from the offensive coaches, the coaches that are going to be leading the way for the 2022 Hornets. Next week, we'll take a look at defense and special teams, leading you up to the season opener, the home opener as well, when the Hornets will take on Utah Tech. Quirky schedule this year. The Hornets open up at home for one, have a bye week, and then 3 consecutive road games before the season really starts to get rolling. But it's a strange schedule, but it's a new year, and a year, like we said, with expectations coming on the hands of the Hornets based on what they have done the previous 2 full seasons under head coach Troy Taylor. In 2019, the Hornets surprised many by winning the Big Sky Conference. In 2021, after the COVID season, the Hornets went undefeated in the Big Sky, won the title, and then fell short in the postseason. So there are postseason goals. Again, I'm sure there are aspirations to win another Big Sky title, but the coaches, as you're going to hear from, will all say it starts with day one, week one, practice time, just all the routines, all the habits that they're trying to build to have a great 2022 season. So with that said, enough from me. Let's hear from the guys that have helped formulate this team. And the offensive side is, like we said, we're going to start. And we're going to start with the man in charge of all of it, and that is the head coach, Troy Taylor. And for Coach, I mean, he's done such a brilliant job with this program so far. And when you have success, what happens? You get people looking at you. Troy Taylor, offseason, he was coveted. There are other programs, other schools, universities that wanted him to lead their football program, and that's very understandable, whether he was listening to Fresno State, Nevada, other schools that were looking at Troy Taylor. Thankfully, he's back with the Hornets and a lot of his staff as well. So I started by asking Coach about that as far as having so many of his coaches back for another year with the Hornets.
We talk a lot about culture and continuity. And continuity is, when you've had success, that people want your guys. And so our coaching staff and our sports staff, everybody's been really loyal in terms of staying here. And part of it is just it's a great place. It's a great university. And I think they're happy. We have a really good time. I feel blessed to have this staff and have them still here.
You've been successful pretty much everywhere you've gone, but I don't know, has this surprised you at all? 2 years, 2 conference titles. It's been wildly successful. Yeah,
we got good people. It starts with our president and our AD and our staff and everyone in here, including yourself, included in the team. I mean, we just got really good people in this program. So, and I think kids are attracted to that. And having success helps, obviously, but just surrounded by a bunch of good people that enjoy what they're doing, are doing it for the right reason, and success helps. But I'm not super surprised. I always thought we could be successful. I think I told you after our first year, I was a little surprised it was that quick, But we're bringing in good people, and as long as we continue to do that, I think we'll continue to have success.
I mean, logically, someone would say, well, you win, more people want to play for you.
Yeah.
Are your recruits coming because of that, or are they coming because of you and Bobby Fresques and Coach Cherokee and Paul? I mean, what are you hearing from the recruits that are coming?
I think our staff does a really good job recruiting, developing relationships, because at the end of the day, it is really about relationships. Now, kids want to play for a winner. I mean, you've been to some of these football powerhouses. I'm not going to pick on any towns or cities, but you go there and sometimes there's not a lot there, but kids from all over the country will go to wherever to play football. So I think winning definitely helps that. But again, it's the relationships. So I think it's part and parcels. I mean, it's both, and you gotta have both. I think the key for us is to continue to recruit and attract people that fit what we're looking for in terms of they'll make more kids may want to be here. It's still, we're looking for kids that love football, love to compete, don't feel entitled or really have a humility about them, and want to get after and play football. As long as we get those guys that fit into what we're doing, then we'll be okay.
As we look to the season, just the schedule as an overview, quirky. I mean, it's You got your home games, you got your road, but to have a home opener, a bye, 3 straight road games, you got league coming up. Yeah. Some teams you miss, some you play. I mean, just as you look at it as a whole, I know it'll be a week-by-week thing. What did you think of the schedule?
Yeah, I mean, it's the schedule here is a little bit quirky. I mean, first year was probably I think we had the most difficult schedule in the FCS. So the bye game's tough. I mean, it's not where you would ideally pick your bye game, but I've learned that you can't always predict that. Sometimes you get a bye week in an unexpected time. You're like, wow, this turned out to be a good time to have a bye week. So we get to play, and then we get a chance to work on some of the things that we need. Usually you see a lot of stuff in the first game that you didn't know. Either you're really good at it or you got to work on some stuff. So that'll give us some time. We'll make it work. We have to play a lot of road games, and that's okay. We've been good on the road, and we'll just see how it plays out.
How's camp been going? Looking at, obviously you're more responsible and looking at the offense all the time, but you're looking at everything. Yeah. The thought on the 2022 Hornets? Good
so far. I think Ryan Dietrich and his staff and the players came in really good shape. So we've had not any injuries, so that's been good. Part of that's being lucky. Part of it is being in good condition and then learning how to practice. We get a lot of reps, a lot of team reps, probably more than anybody in the country. So our guys got to learn how to stay up and take care of each other and still be physical. And I think being in the program for a while, they've kind of learned to do that you can be a tough physical team, but be smart and take care of your teammates. Because at the end of the day, we got to get a lot of reps and we got to stay healthy. And our guys have done a good job of that. So I feel really good about our team.
Obviously there's a reason behind the reps. Why is that beneficial for you guys to get that many in?
I mean, just like you're a lot better at what you do now than you were 10 years ago because you've just done it a lot and you've gained experience, you've gained confidence, and there's an ease of what you do. So it's no different. Our guys just need reps. You try to simulate a game as much as you can. There's only so much you can do. But just giving our guys a chance to play football. We are not a school that's just going to work them out and train them really hard and then limit our team reps and just try and get our guys healthy to the game. We're going to try to get more practice reps than our opponent and be better at what we do. So part of that is putting yourself a little bit more at risk, but that's where practicing smart comes into play, and our guys for the most part have bought into that.
What do you do in the off season as far as, you call the offense? Is there a lot of tinkering? Is there let's polish what we've done? What's your thought process to try to make the offense even better?
Yeah, that's a great question. Just like we ask our players we need to be better. So we reevaluate everything we've done, and we've made some little minor alterations, some bigger alterations, and the goal is, ever since wherever I've been, is improve upon what you're doing, and certainly you don't want to lose the essence of what you're about and those things. But there's always room for improvement. Complacent people think they've already arrived and that they just got to show up, and it just does not work that way. Everybody's getting better, so we got to be better as a coaching staff and better as players. So we look over everything, evaluate everything we're doing. Some of it's really good. Some of it's like, wow, this hasn't been great for us. So it's either eliminate or alter it. So that's a big thing for us. Once we get into the season, we're going to do what we've planned. There's not a lot of alterations once the season starts. So the offseason is really big because we do spend a lot of time researching and evaluating things.
And is that a plan what's best for you, or, hey, we're playing Team X and this is going to fit best against them, or is there kind of a combo of that?
Well, I mean, more of it is just like what we do. We're going to worry more about ourselves. Now, there's trends that come in football, certain things that people are doing defensively and how it's affecting the game and how are you changing because the game's changing. But for the most part, we're going to be who we are. All of our stuff should be good versus everything. And if it's not, then we just will stop running it.
Yeah. Most important position is quarterback, and to have Asher back, to have Jake back, even the support back behind them, Dorian and Caden. It's got to be comforting to you to know that you've got multiple guys that have played a lot of college football.
Yeah, at the most important position. It's all about experience and getting quality repetitions, and we know what our guys can do. Now it's this, again, improving on stuff maybe that they weren't as good at on both of them. And then curtailing what we run offensively with each one of them. And then the young guys, getting them reps. They've gotten a lot of reps, Caden Bennett and Dorian Hale, and so getting a chance to see them and get those reps and that data built up in their brain.
I know last year it was unique. You went with two. Should we expect more of that?
Yeah, it's going to be the same. I think I feel confident with both of them. Both of them could play the entire game, but it works. So we'll continue to do what we did last year.
What'll help him is experience with them. A lot of linemen coming back, a lot of skilled players coming back. that's going to feel good for you.
It does. Experience doesn't necessitate or guarantee success, but it certainly helps. You know what some of these guys can do. And so having guys back like Pierre Williams and Marshall Martin, our offensive line, and there's some young guys that are really good that people don't know about, but are going to play a lot more too. So it's exciting.
Last thing for you, talking to every defensive coach through camp,
yeah.
They're glad they won't be facing you anymore soon. What do you think about the defense that Andy's got and the rest of the group back there?
Our staff does an incredible job. We got some young, talented guys. We got some, got a couple of transfers that have come in that we think are going to be really special. And our guys always do a great job with scheme and altering and adjusting based on their talent and who we're playing. So I feel good about our defense.
Well, there you go. There are some thoughts from the head coach of your Sacramento State Hornets, Troy Taylor. Now, Coach Taylor knows the importance of all the offensive positions, but certainly the importance of the offensive line is critical to any offense. So let's learn a little bit more about the 2022 offensive line led by assistant head coach and offensive line coach Chris Richardson. Now, Coach Richardson is back. He and Coach Taylor have had great synergy with all their experience together. But in my conversation with the offensive line coach, Coach Richardson, started by asking him about all the returners he has coming back.
The guys we got coming back in our starting five have all played a lot. Brandon Weldon and Troy Stiefel both have been starters for me since 2019. Jackson Slater, Ivan Garza both started 8 to 10 games last year. Nathan Mejia at center had some game experience. We limited his action, but he's chomping at the bit, ready to go. Has played a lot of football in his life, so I'm really excited about that group. And then we have some quality depth too. Guys like Paul Sonialofa and Caden Richardson and Donnie Long, all guys that have all played in college football games. So it's good to have that much experience.
So if the Hornets were traveling this week, per se, how many linemen typically would you want to bring? 8, 9, 10? What's your number?
We typically want to bring 10, I mean, and again, if we get in a situation where we can play all 10, we will. If we had to go to 9, that's fine too, because I feel like, and I preach all the time to my guys being interchangeable. We're always going to play the next best guy. It's not always who the number 2 guy is at that position. It's, hey, who's the best 5 I can get on the field at once. So, we're constantly working on interchangeable pieces. But if we can bring, 9 to 10 guys, that's perfect.
How many of your guys do you want to be able to play multiple spots, or are a lot of them just locked in at left tackle or center? Or
again, the more guys I can have that can shuffle the pieces, the better. Obviously as a college season wears on, I mean, all of a sudden you think you got 2 right tackles and 2 guys get hurt. Well, you need to find that third guy. And sometimes bumping a guard out's the best thing, So that's where we feel like, I give the example of Jackson Slater and Brandon Weldon. Hey, Brandon had a season where he started at right tackle and played, 13 games. And then Jackson in the spring played all left tackle. So they're interchangeable, and not to mention as many guys in our offense who can snap the football. Something happens at center. We got a guy like Caden Richardson who's played a lot and snapped his whole high school and college career. But I also got other guys like, Jackson Slater, Tyler Perez, Paul Sonialofa that can go in there at center too. So I'm a big guy preaching multiple position, and in the way we teach it, you can't just know one spot. You kind of know what everybody's doing. So I'd like to think with as experienced as this group is that I feel pretty comfortable in the ability to do that.
When you are thinking about a Hornet offensive lineman, recruiting an offensive lineman, coaching him, what do you see? What do you want your guys to be?
Well, everybody wants the 6'7", 300-pound guys, right? But, we're going to take guys that mentally are the right fit. They got to be smart. They got to be, guys that think quickly. They've got to be tough. When I'm recruiting an offensive lineman, is he a guy that, misses a game? Is the coach telling me that he's injured a lot? A guy that's in there, a guy that's willing to put his face in a pile and get gritty, But again, size and athleticism is a big part of it too. We'll look for athletes over just giant guys that maybe can only run inside zone. We want to be able to have linemen that can pull out in space, run the screen game, be pass protectors. So sometimes that gets you where maybe you're not taking the biggest human being you can find. But, guys that, again, that are willing to put in the work, that are tough as nails and coachable. You give me a 6'3", 280 guy that's got all those things, and that guy can be a heck of a football player for us.
How much of a factor is your lineman's conditioning? Because sometimes Troy, you've been with him a long time. He'll dial that up, and you guys are going.
Huge part of it, right? That's where I always, a high school lineman comes in. Let's say he is a 6'5", 290 guy. And he feels like I need to be 320 because that's what the NFL guys look like. We don't want those guys. We want our guys lean. We preach body composition over weight. So if you're a 295 slow guy, then hey, let's get you to 285, and where you can run and move, because at the end of the big part of this is the conditioning factor. We're going to mix tempos. We're going to go as fast as we can a lot of times. That conditioning piece, and that's where Ryan Dietrich is a rock star. The amount of effort and work that him and his staff have put into our offensive linemen. When you watch our guys can run, and they can run for a long time, and they're powerful, So I'm really excited where our guys are and how well they've trained in the off season, and that's hats off to Coach Dietrich and his staff. Our guys are ready to roll.
I know in the booth we marveled at the two quarterbacks, and fans did too. What's the challenge for the offensive line? I know it's still run block, pass block, but when you've got a different voice. Maybe every play coming in leading the huddle. How's that?
Well, that's a great thing about how we rep our practice, right? They're all in there, and they have different, you try and get it where they don't have different cadences, but the volume of the voice sometimes, some guys, Jake barks out pretty good, Ash is a little quiet. So Ash, you got to speak up, and I'll stand right next to him in practice and feel like if he needs to speak up a little bit, that I'll say, hey, my guys can't hear you again, but that. Just because the way we practice it, and those guys are constantly interchanging in our practice, makes the game where it's not an issue at all. It's just something we do.
Yeah. How about your thoughts on the offense, the totality of it? What do you think you guys have for the year?
I'm excited. We got a lot of guys coming back. Again, like you mentioned, two great quarterbacks, really a whole quarterback room of really talented quarterbacks. We got, running backs that are young but all have had great experience. Really excited to see, the running back tandem, with Fulcher and Scadaboo back there, and then you got Tal Tolliver coming in. Those are three super talented backs, and our receiving core. Pierre Williams is a complete stud. I always joke with him, that guy can block, and I always tell him, hey, anytime I need a left tackle, I'm coming to get you because you're such a great blocker. He knows it's a compliment, but and more athleticism and speed and depth in that position. So I'm excited about what our offense, is going to be able to do this season.
And then the last thing I have for you, all your success at Folsom, chose to come here.
Yep.
I'm sure you visioned it could be successful, but 2 years, 2 titles, fast track it faster than you thought it would be?
We've Troy and I, when we were at Folsom all those years, thought that this would be a great spot, and always felt like, we felt like what we do offensively, once we got the right pieces in place. And there were a lot of great pieces when we got here, so that was one, we showed up, and there was I had some really talented offensive linemen already there, and we did a great job of getting guys to fit our offense, and the kids did a great job of learning it. And then the recruiting piece, we always felt like we can get there and get our style, our exciting style of play on both sides of the ball, obviously with Coach Thompson and then Coach LaPan special teams, that we're an exciting, fun product to watch and get the community behind us, that we always felt like then the recruiting aspect of it would take off. And that's kind of what we feel. It's been a great jump, coming over here. Had a ton of success at Folsom, obviously super proud of that, but that was always the goal. Come here and do the same things we were doing at Folsom, but just do it at the Big Sky level. And now our goal is to win the Big Sky again and make a big push into the playoffs, But to do that, it's one game at a time, and just keep preparing and keep guys where they're improving all year, and then cut it loose and have fun on Saturdays and see what happens.
There's some perspective from offensive line coach and assistant head coach Chris Richardson. Now let's kind of stay in that offensive line area, the tight ends. They're going to be doing some blocking, certainly some pass catching, route running, all that. So it's a complicated position, and the one that's guiding that group is back again. Coach Jeremy LaPan is back guiding the tight ends, and I asked him how refreshing, how reasserting is it for him knowing that Marshall Martin is back for another season with the Hornets.
He's an absolute stud, constant professional, really, really intelligent, bright guy, really instinctual, extremely explosive, got great hands. And I think that his best attribute is his competitive spirit. He goes out there every day and just competes. We record everything with our catapult data, and he's reaching 20 miles per hour, 21 miles per hour, super twitchy. Obviously, you turn on the tape and it shows. Still, we're working on refining some of his skills because nobody's perfect. So he can tell you just as well as the other tight ends how critical I am of him. But there's no lapse in holding him accountable for maybe a bad route or bad footwork or something. But he's getting better every single day.
How much? Well, really, probably for any of your great offensive players, but there's good running backs. You got a good group of receivers, and here's your tight end group that I think would be difficult to game plan for you guys, knowing that any one of these individuals or position groups can burn you.
Yeah, and Coach Taylor does a great job with spreading that ball around. Trying to press the ball up the field and vertical. And I tell Marshall all the time, it's show off your speed. If you don't get the ball on a certain rep, that's fine, but respect the process. By you running a go route over the top of somebody's head makes the D-coordinator a little bit nervous. It might open up an underneath route for a Pierre Williams or a Chris Miller or a Parker Clayton or whoever it is. We got a lot of talent across the board, and my hat's off to the other coaches for how hard that they've coached their guys and in the recruiting process to recruiting the right guys. Mm-hmm.
Well, let's talk about the rest of your room. It's not just Marshall Martin. You got other guys, thankfully for yourself, too. 5 other tight ends. What do you think about your group collectively and the guys that we should expect to contribute this year?
So Marshall obviously is electric. The other guys, I got 2 young guys. Coleman Kuntz, really excited about him. He had a great senior highlight tape and is doing a tremendous job, super aggressive and competitive. Austin Gerard, transferred from Oklahoma State, local kid. Love him. And you can't forget about Charlie McBride, local Rockland kid, who contributed a lot in the run game last year, and whenever his number was called. And I think our 2 tight end set was one of our more effective packages when running the football. We got those 4 guys, and then we got 2 other young guys in Kobe Weeks from Granite Bay High School, and then Will Scaldy from Lemoore. And Will Scaldy's a big 6'5", 225 kid, really really good with his end of the line blocking. Kobe Weeks, really good route runner. Combined, they pose a threat as well. So I really feel like I got 6 guys who can play, and Marshall's kind of leading the head there, and but the future's looking bright for the Hornets at tight end.
Yeah, I would think too. In some programs, they're maybe just blockers. Here you kind of ask for maybe 2 tight ends, maybe sometimes 3 blocking, and others going out and route. You guys have to be pretty versatile, don't you?
We do have to be pretty versatile. So we're constantly working on our craft, but us here at Sac State, we do football all year round, whether it's we're coaching them or, hey, here's a script, go out there and kind of do it on your own and go make plays and hone your craft. And it's great with technology nowadays because you can put a video online, on the Google Classroom, and hey, here are the fundamentals, work on these fundamentals, and then the maturity. And Coach Taylor always says that mature teams win championships, so I'm constantly preaching that to my guys. In order to be mature, that means you have to be doing the right thing when nobody's watching. So when we're not watching, hopefully those guys are stepping up and sharpening their tools by the time camp hits or spring ball hits or this time of your season hits.
Last thing for you, I'm thinking about that as you said that, you guys have earned the expectations. 2 straight years of winning the conference title is amazing, but then how do you allow them to know that they've got a good thing going, but this year's a new year that, nothing's given. So kind of that balance of being confident but not overconfident.
Yeah, I think it's a lot easier to get to the top of the mountain than it is stay at the top of the mountain, because now you have a big bullseye on your back. I think we're picked up when go 2nd or 3rd in the conference or something like that. But for my guys, it's all about the process. There's a quote that I love by Bo Schembechler. He was the head coach of Michigan for a lot of years. You're either getting better or you're getting worse. You never stay the same. And so I'm constantly preaching to those guys, hey, we didn't play very well. We got worse today. So now we take 1 step backwards. Now we got to take a couple steps forward, And so constantly just following the process. everything is process oriented. Okay, hey, how are you on this rep? How was your effort on this rep? And just trying to maintain that standard, because I don't want to lower the bar. Once you start lowering the bar and saying, oh yeah, you're fine, we've kind of arrived, that's when you can really have heartbreak set in. So just holding the standard and respecting the process.
Thank you to Coach Jeremy LaPan giving us some perspective there on the tight ends. Now, we talked about offensive line, tight ends. They're going to be out there helping and protecting the quarterbacks, the most important position on the field, according to many, certainly to Coach Troy Taylor. And last year he had the unique position in which he played two quarterbacks in Jake Dunaway and Asher O'Hara for the majority of the season, and it was wildly successful. It worked beautifully for the Hornets, and both guys are back. And the expectation, as you heard earlier, is that both guys will play quarterback again and a lot of reps for this program. So we're going to get to Bobby Fresques, a former Hornet quarterback and certainly quarterback's coach, on this. But I asked Bobby first about his connection with Troy Taylor, Chris Richardson, those guys, and all the success they had at Folsom. Now they're Hornet coaches, and it's been incredibly successful here too. So I asked Bobby about that, as this surprised him how well the Hornets have done so quickly as the new coaching staff has taken over.
I don't think it's surprising, but for everything to happen as quick as it did, I think it was more surprising than everybody else. But as a coach, those are always your intentions, to come in and do well and have success. And, we hit the ground running. But, we've had a lot of experience, in that area. Yeah. And we've continued with it. And, of course, it comes, with coaching. But the players really have to buy into it. And I think that's the most notable thing about our program is our culture. It's incredible. If you don't fit in, it's obvious. And we have a group of guys, and I think it's from top down, that have really proven, that success is the way we're going to do things around here.
Have you noticed then, so you guys have to do your part, but is there like policing amongst the players then?
There is, of course, but it just starts, from the top down, from Troy to Coach Dietrich to, the position coaches, to everybody. It's just, if you're not doing things the right way, you're going to be called on it. So you're going to be policed to a certain extent, but, if you're not going to buy in, then you're going to weed yourself out. Yeah. And we have a bunch of hungry kids who, love football and, they want to contribute, and then they see the success. So when they see success on the field, they want to be a part of it. So I have a couple quarterbacks who are chomping at the bit, but they're going to have to wait their time, because we have two guys, who are very solid, but that creates really good work habits, from our quarterback room.
Yeah. Well, let's go to the two. I mean, you guys had a unique spot last year. You kind of, as the season goes on, you decide to play two. You get success from both, and they're both back, and it sounds like you're going to rinse and repeat. I mean, but advance, I guess, as they improve. What have you seen from Jake and Asher growth as you get ready to start a new season?
Jake's just such a professional. He's been in the program, since May of 2020. Yeah, right after our first season here. He came in the spring. Actually, 2019. He came in that spring, and with him, his body of work has spoken for itself. He's banked a lot of reps, and he offers that, as a player, and then gives us confidence, because he's like a player. He's like a coach on the field. Yeah. And then Ash, he came in a little different situation. He had a ton of experience of playing at this level, but at the same time, he just didn't have a lot of reps in our system. So he had to hit the ground running, and he did well because of his instincts and that experience, but at the same time, it cost him because he just didn't know the system as well. So now, being a year into it, his growth has been exponential. So it's really good to see. And then the dynamic those two have, it's really like any other position, which is kind of unique, because I remember when I was playing here, and it was a competition between Aaron and I, and you're just want to be the guy.
Right.
Where other positions, you'll play 3 or 4 or 5 people. So now those guys treat it like they're receivers going in and out of the game. So they're always ready, always on call, and I don't think it hinders, their performance at all. I mean, they can be called, from one play to the next, and really it's like any other position. Number 1 receiver going to number 2, and so on and so forth.
Yeah. I noticed as the year went on, obviously it wasn't a surprise anymore, but you guys were still effective. And how do you, when the counter comes, it's like, okay, here, but it doesn't mean you're always running with Asher or you're always throwing with Jake. How do you find the balance or keeping the other team off balance with the two skill sets those guys have?
Yeah, you have to work to their strengths for sure, but they can do both. And Jake proved that. Jake came in at 228 pounds, so
he's looking pretty ripped now.
Yeah, and geez, he had got to 190, which we thought was a little too light. We think the ideal weight for him was 200 to 205, and he runs a lot better than you think. And then Ash, with all those reps that he's banked, he's an efficient passer as he is a runner. But bottom line is, with what we do with the quarterbacks and getting them all of those team reps, you really have to find their skill set and what they're good at. Mm-hmm. If there's something that they're not good at, it's going to show in film over, the course of fall camp and, spring football. So you really got to put them in situations where they're going to succeed.
Yeah, and they're still in that spot where they genuinely, seemingly like each other and feed off each other's success, seemingly to me.
Yeah, they really do. And, it's from top to bottom in the quarterback room as well. Jake's kind of like that father figure, with everybody. And then he and Ash do a great job of coaching up the younger guys, throughout a practice and giving them, some words of encouragement or some advice on how to make a read or, what they saw in a certain play. So the room is really good, yet very competitive because those two backups, they have a lot of wins under their belt in high school with a lot of success at the highest level of high school football. So, it's trying for them, but it's also a virtue where it's just of good training and creating good habits for them.
I'm thinking about Asher too. There's so many maybe high risk plays he may make, but then it's also, man, not many people can make that play. So where do you, maybe on film evaluation, you're like, okay, what was the thought process there? Though nice play, like how do you measure that?
Yeah, well, it's real simple. Just from even my experience, going back to playing and with Coach Knapp and then coaching and being around Coach Taylor a long time, we go through a pre-flight checklist. So every play, they got to be able to manage the play in their head. What's expected of them. They got to manage the formation, just make sure that they're taking command and make sure everybody's aligned right. They're getting their motions and shifts and all that. But then, most importantly, they got to manage the game. They got to know the down and distance and the situation we are in, as the game progresses. For Ash to make some of those plays that he did last year early on in a game, it's just not smart football. So I think he learned from those mistakes, and I think it just made him a better player. Mm-hmm. So now, for example, against Northern Iowa, he dives on the first drive and fumbles, and it gives them 1st and 10 on their 20. Dude, live to see another down. Right. Let's punt the ball. Let's start playing field position rather than giving our defense a short field. Now, if that was the end of the game, by all means, go for it. Or not running out of bounds on 3rd and 5 and you lose 7. Now we're punting out of our end zone. Mm-hmm. So I think he's learned how to manage the game way better. And then we got to keep reminding him, take care of yourself. Mm-hmm. Because he's more, as I tell him, you're more important on the field than off the field being injured. Because then we lose what he brings to the game.
Yeah. You brought up earlier, too, last thing I have for you, Bobby, as far as your depth, you have 2 other guys that are waiting in the wings behind 2 obviously very good quarterbacks. Tell us a little bit about Caden Bennett, who's got a bunch of experience with your offense, and then Dorian Hale.
Yeah, Caden, we've coached since his freshman year at Folsom High School, so I had the pleasure of coaching him all 4 years there, and he's had a lot of opportunities and reps, and that's what it's about in developing quarterback, reps in 11-on-11 football. He's had that, but there is a learning curve because at this level the game just picks up and it gets a lot faster. So for Caden, it's just to continue to grow in the offense and then learn what the defenses are doing so he can get to that 3rd and 4th progression, and do it efficiently. I always tell those guys, sometimes watching you guys play, and Jake and I were joking about this, it's like watching a scary movie. You don't know, how it's going to happen. All of a sudden you get startled. Mm-hmm. I want to be able to go in there and sit and be very calm watching them play. I can do that when I watch Jake and Ash. I want to get to that point where I can sit and watch and know that those guys are going to make the right decisions, every play. Yeah. And Caden's getting closer, and Dorian's on his tail, and Dorian, the only thing that's really hurt him is he came from a system in which they didn't throw the ball, so he doesn't have all those reps banked. But he gets reps out here. He gets a lot of time, with me in the classroom, and then out there in the field. I'm a big proponent of this. That you have to, get those mental reps. Yeah. Coach Knapp used to always say, be a vicarious learner. Even if you're not in, you should be watching. So I always tell the guys, learning from your own mistakes is great, but learning from others is brilliant. Mm-hmm. So if Ash makes a mistake and then KB goes in and makes that same mistake, shame on him. Right. Because that's their only opportunities. Mm-hmm. Because although they've gotten some reps, once we get to the season, those reps are going to shrink and diminish. So now they have to bank on mental reps and then getting in the classroom and watching film and then getting some extra coaching from me.
All right, thank you to quarterback coach Bobby Fresques. A lot of pressure, a lot of weight on the shoulders of Jake Dunaway and Asher O'Hara going into the 2022 season. All right, but they have help. They've got skill players all around them. Let's start with the guys behind them, the running backs. It's another talented group there, as guided by Coach Agnew, who's back in the program as well, a former running back himself. Let's learn a little bit about his group as he talks about his room and the guys he has for the 2022 season.
First and foremost, they're all good kids. They get along, and they all love football. And they are pretty talented. Kind of starts with Marcus Fulcher and Cameron Scadaboo as the two guys that come back with the most experience. I'm really proud of those two first and foremost because those guys were young guys last year that got their roles elevated and took it and ran with it and made our football team better because of their ability to be ready to play and contribute when their number was called on. I often say last year Marcus had a really good month, like September, October-ish. And he was probably our best guy in the backfield for a month before he got injured. And Scadaboo came in and was a big-time difference maker, and it was a big part in us winning the conference. So it really starts with those two. Then you got the Elijahs, Elijah Gable and Elijah Tautoliver. EJ's been a guy that's been solid for a while. He's undersized is what he is, not the biggest guy. The one thing about EJ is he's courageous, not afraid at all for being a smaller guy, and he's similar to his brother Isaiah as far as their games, size-wise, ability-wise. I think EJ might be a little faster. Isaiah was a little bit better laterally, but there's some similarities there. So he gives you some versatility and gives you some good depth. I've been pleased with his progress overall. Elijah Tautoliver is a young player for us. He came in the class of 2021. He was the Player of the Year in Nevada, Gatorade Player of the Year in Nevada when he was coming out his senior year. So we felt like we got a good player in him, and he's done some good things development-wise. He's gotten more consistent. He's gotten better in his pass protection, and he's been dynamic with the ball in his hands. It gives us a little bit more speed in the room that we haven't had in the past. So I think he will have a pretty good year, and he's really good on special teams. So he's a really good dynamic piece, not just for the room, but also for the entire football team. So I'm excited to see kind of how he continues to grow and how he could help us. And then Mike Johnson, he's been on the team for – this is going on his third year, really one full season. So he still has his full eligibility clip. Mike has been improving. He needs to get more consistent overall, just with the whole pass protection piece. That's where really all starts with running backs is protecting the quarterback. Mm-hmm. So once he gets more consistent with that, he'll have a chance to try to get some more playing time. But he has to get more consistent with the pass protection piece. He does flash as a runner because he has good vertical speed, and he's pretty decisive as a runner. And then you round it out with Zeke Burnett, the local product from Elk Grove. Zeke, he is a guy that has talent. We saw that talent in him. The biggest thing for him is learning the system. We put a lot on our running backs here at Sac State as far as pass protection goes, run blocking. I often say Sac State is a home with a complete running back just because of all the things we ask those guys to do. So I think Zeke, once he learns the system and gets more comfortable, I think he'll be a good player for us. He's kind of dealt with some stuff injury-wise during camp so far, but he's got some ability. Really good one-cut runner, gets vertical fast. He's got good size to him already. He's already 205 pounds coming in. And so I think he'll be like a 215, 220-pound guy when it's all said and done after he gets done with Coach Dietrich, our strength coach, his strength and conditioning, which, by the way, he's as good as it gets. Mm-hmm. So, but, yeah, that kind of rounds out the room right there. Yeah. A lot of good talent, good players that love football, that love to work. And I couldn't ask for a better group, to be honest. It's never a dull moment, and, I'm grateful to coach them.
So when you're I don't know, if you're looking into the room, you're looking at a future recruit, you ask a lot of these guys, of running backs, what's a perfect fit? What do you want from your Hornet running backs?
Yeah, so like I said, I think the running back room is the home of the complete running back. As far as being a running back at Sac State, you got to be complete. You got to be able to catch the ball. You got to be at least willing as a protector. We'll teach you how to protect the right way and teach you protections, but you got to be willing. And at the end of the day, when you play running back, you got to be special with the ball in your hands. At the end of the day, we don't recruit guys that can't make guys miss or break tackles. Yards of the contact is a premium with the position. If you cannot get his yards of the contact or make the first guy miss or the safety miss, you really shouldn't have any spot in Division I, let alone Sac State. So when you're looking at a guy first off, okay, is he tough, right? Is he going to be able to handle the workload of, as much blocking as we ask our guys to do? Is he going to be special with the ball in his hands? Is he going to be able to catch the ball? Mm-hmm. Is he smart? Can he learn? You got to love football to play here at Sac State. That's just reality. If you don't love football, you will not make it. So, some of those qualities, that's what we look for in a running back. It's a lot, and we're picking who we go after. So, but I think the process works because we got some good players.
And watching you guys play the position, I mean, you'll do 2 backs sometimes, 1 back, 5 wide with a running back out there. I mean, you guys have to kind of know a little bit of everything with that offense.
Yeah, no, it's true. We do a lot with our guys. They line up at number 3, number 2, number 1, 2 guys in the backfield. They're in the boundary. They're doing motions, shifts, trading, and so on and so forth. So they do a lot of things, and I think that helps them learn the game better. And so because of that, I think people do like playing in this system, because you're doing so many different things, so many creative things. That's a testament to Coach Taylor and the work he's done with the scheme that we have here. And I appreciate him from a running back coach perspective, using the running backs in a multitude of ways. Not just being in the backfield and doing your basic protections, right? He has us doing a lot of different things where it puts a strain on our guys learning-wise, but it also broadens their horizon and also my horizon as well as a coach. So, it's a fun brand to play running back in the system. It really is.
Is it a challenge for those guys? Last year was pretty unique to see. About game 4, you went 2 quarterbacks, which isn't very common. Sounds like going to happen again this year with Jake and Asher. Just a different voice, different cadence, different styles. Is that a challenge for the running backs when they're shuffling in and out?
I don't think so. We do a lot of work with both of them, and so we try to create a comfort with both Ash and Jake, and even all the other quarterbacks that may play at some point. So I don't think it's too much of an issue because we will ball handle with both quarterbacks, so there is a comfort level. And that's something that we intentionally do because we know we do play 2 quarterbacks and play them frequently. So I don't think it'll be an issue, to be honest. I don't.
Lastly for you, do you personally set any numbers, goals, targets for your running backs? Do you have a few things in mind for the 2022 year from your group?
Yeah, so that's a rule of mine in the room, is to not set any individual statistical goals, and nor do I set any group goals, because I don't want it to be centered around us. I want it to be centered around trying to help the team be better. And I created that rule after my first year coaching at North Dakota. I had a few backs that were very talented. They both played / are playing professionally. And so those guys had ambitious numbers, and I'm all for the ambition. But the reality is there was 2 guys in the room, and there's a lot of people on the offense that are touching the ball. And so I don't want guys to get down on themselves when they're not reaching their own goals. And so I was like, okay, we're not going to set any individual statistical goals nor any room goals. The only goals we may set are no balls on the ground and no sacks. Mm-hmm. Those may be the only goals that we may set. Otherwise, it's like, let's make sure, let's keep it keep it about the team. Yeah, it's kind of what I try to do. So.
All right, we wrap up our position battles on the offensive side with the wide receivers. This is a big group, a lot of players out there for Coach Tyler Osborne. So let's get into it and hear from the coach himself as he discusses the loads of talent the Hornets have at the wide receiver position.
We got a lot of guys that played for us last year that are coming back, and really excited about those guys that are coming back, but even some new guys that we're adding to the mix. That we have 3 kind of newcomers that have come in over the summer in Sawyer Merrill, who came from American River College, Carlos Hill, who's initially from Miami, who's now out here in California, went to Antelope Valley Junior College, and then Kyron Griffin Isom, who is a transfer from Troy, who played junior college ball out here as well. So I'm excited about the guys that we have coming back, and then also a couple guys that we've added to the mix recently.
How do you weigh the difference? I mean, those guys have experience, but they're new to the Hornets versus the guys that have been around a little bit. Even if it's a year, they know the system, they know you. How do you measure those qualities?
Yeah, it's something that obviously being here and in our system for like a guy like Pierre, who's been here for going into his 4th year, in our offensive system, he's going to have quite a bit of knowledge and a base layer of what we do here, kind of down in the offense. And those other guys that came in, it's a lot thrown at them at first, but all three have kind of taken it in and adjusted and learned the system pretty quickly. And so I think that's really what fall camp's for. It's to get these guys a ton of practices, a ton of reps. They're not really in school yet right now, and so they're able to really focus on football and kind of learn the system. And I think by the end of fall camp, that kind of part of it of learning the offense and everything for the most part kind of evens itself out because we get so many reps throughout fall camp.
What kind of a security blanket for you as a coach of this group is Pierre? I mean, just the reps he's had, the resume, the production, and he's got another year for you.
Yeah, he's he's a phenomenal person first and foremost, which I think if you just look at how he lives his life and kind of how he goes about kind of doing every little thing in his life, both on and off the field, to the best of his abilities and kind of to the highest degree that he can, and I think that bleeds into his play. He's a very consistent player for us, very smart. We can put him in a lot of different spots across the field, and really he can play almost any eligible position in our offense, and he knows it inside and out. And he's obviously got a great skill set and a lot of physical attributes that really help us. He attacks the ball when it's in the air, very fluid, really good at releases, and so we look at him like he's a guy that we can count on. And there's a lot of guys in the room that we feel the same way about, but obviously he's done it here for quite a few years, and really excited to have him back for another year.
Would you say he's the leader of the group, or is he more of a leader by example? Kind of who's the voice in the room besides you?
Yeah, that's the one thing I've always kind of challenged the group a little bit with is we have a lot of guys that are kind of more quiet, more reserved guys. They kind of lead by example, and I don't think that's a bad thing.
Yeah. Even the diva position?
Yeah, even the diva position. Now there's some guys that definitely like to talk a little bit more and all that, but as far as the guys that are kind of the leaders in the group, I'd say they're all more leaders by example. And I don't look at that like it's a bad thing. Right. Every once in a while when I'm trying to get the group going, if we're not off to a good start on the day, or if there's something trying to get corrected, I try and challenge those guys to kind of help and step in and get those guys going too, just so it's not always coach having to do it. Mm-hmm. But ultimately those guys are great leaders by example, and we have quite a few of them on the team.
When you're recruiting, I mean, obviously speed's going to pop out, size, hands, but route running, the importance of understanding how do you evaluate all of that when you're trying to find your dream Hornet receivers?
Yeah, I mean, from a recruiting perspective, I'm always looking for guys that can run fast and catch the ball extremely well. So if you have those two traits where you can run really fast and you can catch the ball really well, that's usually kind of the starting point for me. And when I mean catch the ball well, I'm not even talking about just like, hey, you're wide open and we've got a corner playing off coverage, it's kind of bailing, and we're wide open and we're catching the ball, right? Everyone should be able to go out there and make those plays. But when they're having to make contested catches, when somebody's gloved up on them in man coverage, and we got to come down with it. I think ultimately that's kind of what I'm looking for when I'm talking about catching the ball and guys that can run. And then beyond that, we have to have guys that are just really good football players from a kind of a feel standpoint. We do a lot of things in our offense where they need to understand space and leverage and things of that nature, and guys that have just a good feel for the game and a good understanding of where defenders are and things of that nature really can help them get open more and catch more balls. And so ultimately when it comes down to playing time and all that, us as coaches at every position, we're just looking for guys that produce and execute at the highest rate. Yeah. And so sometimes that looks a little different than what your typical mold that you're looking for is. But ultimately, if a guy's, in my position at receiver, if they're coming down with a lot of balls and they're getting open and doing the right thing from an assignment standpoint, then, hey, regardless of how they're getting open or how fast they're running, as long as they're coming down with some balls and doing what they're supposed to on each play, that's what we're looking for.
And for you, and really for the receivers, it's probably nice to be in Troy's offense. I mean, you guys are busy.
Yeah, no doubt. So we definitely love, as a receiver group, we definitely love being in this offense. Coach Taylor does a phenomenal job with our offensive scheme, both in the run game and the pass game. His pass game is unique, as many parts of his offense are, and it definitely gives some, I can kind of put freedom within some kind of parameters, within our guys of being able to do different things on offense. And I think that really helps those guys, catch more balls and create more space and get open. And it's definitely very fun for them. And, we have a lot of explosive plays in the receiver room every year because of naturally what he does on offense. And receivers love catching the ball and having explosive plays. So,
last thing I'll ask you, Coach, is that I asked the defensive guys kind of what they think of the offense, and they're anxious to be done with going against you guys. Conversely, I'll ask you, I mean, how's Coach Key and Whitfield doing with the secondary that you guys, your receivers, have to go against?
Yeah, they're doing a phenomenal job. Those guys give us a really good, it's really good competition every day going against them, both the corners and the safeties and kind of the nickel position that those two guys assist in coaching. And overall, we've got some really good players in the back end, some older guys too as well. So it's a very competitive, environment every day in practice. And both those coaches are phenomenal coaches. And not only are they very sound from a schematic standpoint in the back end, but technique-wise, they do a lot of really good things that make it tough on us. And I'm glad that I get a little frustrated sometimes having to play against them every day in practice, but I'm sure glad we have them on our side on Saturdays. So
get you ready.
Gets us ready, yeah. And and our guys are, they get along great. So it's always a very competitive battle every day in practice. But the DBs and receivers ultimately, love each other, and it's a good kind of healthy battle every time.
All right, my thanks to all of the coaches that joined us for our offensive coaches preview today, whether it was Coach Agnew in the backfield, you just heard from Coach Osborne, Coach Richardson, Coach Fresques, Coach LaPan, and, of course, Coach Troy Taylor. My thanks to that entire group. Next week on the podcast, we'll take a look at defense and special teams and a preview of the home and season opener against Utah Tech. Thank you so much for listening. Tell a friend, tell everyone, tell Hornet Nation that we're out there. We appreciate you all listening to episode 1 of the 2022 season of the Stingers Up Sacramento State Hornet Football Podcast.